This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Fourth and Frames. Tonight we are going to break down our Week 11 plays and fades. And if you're joining us live on YouTube, we'll be answering your questions as well. And if you're watching with us on YouTube and want to support our content, the best thing you do is like and subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel to catch anytime a new podcast or short form drops from us. You can also search for all the podcasts here at Fantasy and Frames by name on your preferred podcast platform. For us, make sure to subscribe to the Fourth and Frames podcast. And then lock in at fantasyandframes.com for the latest weekly rankings for both redraft and IDP, as well as our staff dynasty rankings and all of our latest articles. I'm here, Rhett Manuel, here with Drew Scott, Kyle Ziegler, and Nate Markham. Normally I mix it up, but let's go ahead, Nate. For some reason, you're just looking dapper as usual. How are you tonight, man?
They say look good, feel good, analyze good, or guess good. I'm hoping to guess correctly this week with some of our smash and pass, but all in all, no complaints, fellas. I'm really happy, actually. Nothing makes me happier than when Aiden joins the chat and I get a laugh about my what do you know? What do you know? Hey, welcome in, buddy.
Looks how like the turntables.
Yeah, shot your load against the worst Patrick Mahomes game ever, and yeah, so. Yeah, exactly. I don't even have to work. Words don't even need to be spoken. Just looks. And I'm looking.
And so meanwhile, while Nate is over here continuing his blood feud with Aiden, Kyle Ziegler is on a real heater in the Scott Fish Bowl. Apparently ranked 13th in the world right now. What is going on?
Yeah, I had to give myself a little humble brag there. I don't know what's going on either. I knew I had a really good week. I was ranked 39 before this week, and I had a pretty good week. I scored 378, I think. And
pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good. And I was like, I knew that was going to be a good week, but I didn't know how good. I was like, I wonder if I could crack that top 10. So honestly, when I didn't get that tag from Scott Fish himself, I was like, dang, I didn't make the top 10. So I went to go look, and I was like, oh, 13 though. So if I get one more good week, maybe I could sneak in there.
There you go.
Well done, no matter what. And speaking of people who are just on heaters, we've been doing this smash or pass thing all season. And Drew Scott, we're going to review the numbers shortly for the season, but we're just going to go ahead and just let the people know right now. Your hit rate for the season has been an astounding 62%.
So I'll say this. We always say that the running backs that get less touches should be more efficient in theory, like less volume, better efficiency. I also have made less smash or pass picks so far on the season compared to these two gentlemen below me because of shows I had to miss earlier in the year. So since I am the one with the less mileage on my body, I should in theory be the more efficient of the three of us. Now there's still, plenty of season to go. So we'll see if that stays that way, or if I come back down a little bit as the weeks go on.
So is it safe to call you the Sean Tucker of Smash or Pass right now?
That would make me hashtag pleased. Yeah, I'm good with that.
So yeah, guys, kind of going over the Smash and Pass thing as the check-ins or how far we're doing, how well everyone's doing so far this year. Nate went over 1 last week and has a 48% hit rate on the season. Not bad, Nate. You go to the casino and you hit 48 out of every 100. I mean, you're feeling pretty good about that.
I am. I'll add too. I think that it's impressive. I was looking at that and the amount of non-risky picks that everybody's taken. So I was trying to count the number of players that were ECR top 10 that have actually hit, or outside the ECR top like 60 that or that's a smash and top 10 that were pass.
Right.
And that is one area that I think I could improve on. I have enough of the top 10s, Jaden Daniels, et cetera, that have hit, but like I try to play it too safe sometimes. So I feel like that 48 is even. I'll do the, like Drew is doing and staying away from patting himself on the back. But I feel like I could get a little riskier. And yet, as we go into this week's, none of mine are like right on that border, but they're close.
Oh, buddy. If you want to see somebody who's just going conservative tonight, you just wait, my friend. You just wait. But Kyle went 1 for 2 last week, and he has a 47% hit rate on the season. Once again, Kyle, I mean, solid. You've been in the game all year. I mean, if we had a 47% 3-point shooter, we'd be feeling good about that.
That's true. That's a good way to phrase it, Rhett. I like the way you said that. I felt like I was keeping up with Drew earlier in the season, and then I kind of got cold here the last 3 weeks. I looked at that, so I was like, you know what? I'm taking this personal. I'm going to try to hit 4 for 4 here this week.
There's
every
no
shooter hits a slump
on the show sheet this week, so we're good.
And of course, we mentioned Drew, who's 62% of the season and went 2 for 2 last week. Looks like he's probably going to be ready to keep it rolling.
Shout out Alec Pierce.
Shout out Alec Pierce. So we're just going to get straight into it right now and talk about our smash and pass players for the week. For our smash players, we're going to have players outside the top 12. Quarterbacks, top 15 running backs, top 20 wide receivers, our top 10 tight ends. And the Fantasy Pros Week 11 ECR questions, ECR rankings. And then pass going to be players that are inside the top 15 running backs, the top 20 running backs, top 35 wide receivers, our top 12 tight ends. Those are pass players. So, guys, little curveball for the crew tonight that's watching with us, because we're going to have a surprise guest picker for tonight's Smash or Pass. Any idea who that might be, guys?
No idea.
Sean McVay.
No, close. Kyle?
Jorge?
Nope, not Jorge either. Nate?
Well, let's go with your third cousin from Topeka, Kansas.
I don't have a third cousin from. No, Mallory from Topeka is not. And although we tried to get Lil Jordan Helper to get on the show and do guest smash or pass picks, you guys have to settle for me tonight. So it is what it is. I know, what a letdown.
Congratulations on getting to make your debut this year. I'm sure it'll be fun.
Yeah, you are the Lil Jordan Humphrey of the group.
I don't know whether to be insulted or not.
Just don't even worry. Don't just always assume the positive.
Always assume the best. We're gonna assume the best, Nate, with your first smash pick. I mean, you are sitting here, and we don't want to pick on the Cincinnati Bengals, but there comes a time in a man's life where you kind of just gotta man up and just understand that maybe we're not picking on you. Maybe you just kind of earned it. And in the case of the Cincinnati Bengals, and when it comes to Pat Freiermuth being the ECR 25, playing the kid who gets stuffed into the locker defensively all season in the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, you kind of have to just take that ball and roll with it, because it's smart money at this point.
Oh, it's even, I mean, specifically the tight end position against him. If you look on the season going into last week, Sunday morning, we were talking about just how bad, historically bad so far. Andy brought up a point that the Bengals on the season had allowed 12 touchdowns to the tight end spot, which it's hard to conceive that that's even a possibility. And then you add in the fact that the next two closest teams combined had 12 touchdowns. And I was like, all right, well, maybe they're just red zone threats. Nope. They allow the most targets to tight ends. They allow the most receptions, or they did prior to the game. They're still third in receptions, most yards, everything positive, negative, whichever way you want to look at that. Positive for Pat Freiermuth, negative for the Cincinnati Bengals. The only question is they have so many different tight end options there. And we've seen Jonnu Smith see more yards here, more routes run. But if we go back to week 7, what Freiermuth was capable of doing against the Bengals in their last matchup was, 5 or 6, $111, 2 touchdowns. In the tight end landscape, to be a tight end 1, if you can get even, the old projected 2/3 of a touchdown, which doesn't really actually exist, but when I'm doing projections, that's it right there. I think that there's no better shot just to, if you don't have Tyler Warren this week, if you don't have Jawan Johnson and you have to scour the waiver wire, Pat Freiermuth to me is just the easiest quick scoop. I'll give a secondary shout out bid and make sure that one of you guys don't have them listed on there is I think Dawson Knox would be the second option for me. If I can get a 1 and a 1B, 1A, 1B tight end spots, those are it. Still sticking with Pat Freiermuth as my smash.
I like it. So you mentioned Dawson Knox there a little bit, and I want to ask you a quick follow-up question on that before we move on. In a league where I don't know who I'm playing this week. It's the Fantasy and Frames Dynasty League. Let's just put yourself into my shoes. You were the Dalton Kincaid owner. You were able to pick up Dawson Knox, but I'm gonna give you another gross one. You also have Tyler Higbee rostered, and the Rams have been using the tight end a ton recently, but they use a number of tight ends.
Yes, they have.
And so I'm going to give you a gross starter sit question here before we throw it to Kyle to talk some more tight end talk. Or sorry, not tight end talk, but before we go to his first smash play. So if you had to go Higbee or Dawson Knox, which direction would you go?
I'd probably, and that's tricky part because I don't know for certain.
Rhett, so this is important. I need to beat Rhett this week.
Well, I'm going to go with Dawson Knox. I feel like the pathway to targets just seems more consolidated in Buffalo, albeit they're wonkier than they can be. But
right,
I don't know. I feel safer with Dawson Knox, even though Tyler Higbee has been much better than just garbage, and what's out there with the tight end landscape. That's really all you need. You don't need to shoot for the moon. But
true that.
I wish I knew which Buffalo team was going to come out, the one that was trailing like they did this past week, where they have to throw the ball quite a bit more, or the normal one. But I'm going to still lean. Which way are you leaning, do you think?
I was leaning toward Knox, but it was close though. So Seattle's a tough matchup for the Rams, and so I've been kind of leaning toward Knox. I think
I have Knox at 20 overall. I'm probably going to move him up to like 16, and I have about 8 spots lower is where I had Higbee, and I've been moving him up and down.
Right.
But like you said, Seattle's just not my favorite matchup. Even though they're not a terrible matchup against the tight end.
Against the tight end, right?
The fourth most, but that it's every weekend and it's a matchup. So
yeah.
All right.
So that's all.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we're taking that first smash play, and that was Pat Freiermuth against the Cincinnati Bengals. Kyle, you decided to look at one of my favorite games of the week, and one that if you kind of dig into it, it's an interesting matchup in a lot of ways, because you have two teams that are marquee NFC teams with the Lions and the Eagles. One team who is sneakily very good on defense, and another who is sneakily not so good on defense. If you kind of look at it, because you would think it might be the other way around, but you're taking Jamo Williams against Philadelphia as ECR wide receiver 26. The perception is that the Eagles have it all kind of together, but digging into things a little bit earlier today, I kind of realizing that this may not quite be the same unit that we've seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'm at ECR wide receiver 26. You're right. I'm taking Jameson Williams. I think I'm buying into this Dan Campbell thing calling plays after just 1 week for Jameson Williams. He's doing it again here in week 11 on Sunday Night Football against the Eagles. It's not just because he had the best game of his season, guys, because he did. It's not just because of that, but Dan Campbell calling plays. But if we do look at it, it kind of mirrors more of a Ben Johnson type of offense with motion, which was used at a season high last week at 78.8% of dropbacks. The play action was significant, had a significant uptick as well. The first 9 weeks under John Morton, the play action was used only 28.6% of the time per dropback. Dan Campbell grabs the play sheet, takes over, uses play action, and abuses it on 51.5% per dropback. And when you have running backs like Gibbs and Monty, who can average 4.5 yards per carry or even more, which they are, that play action game is deadly when you have a burner on the perimeter like Jamison Williams. And I know, like you said, Rhett, the Eagles have been pretty good, at opposing the wide receivers. They allow the 10th fewest fantasy points to the position. But this offense, if it's shifting back to what we've seen in years past, then this favors Jamison Williams, man. Did you know that Jamo had more 75-plus yard games than Amon-Ra St. Brown did last year? Jamo had 8. St. Brown had 5. And if we look at the wide receivers that the Eagles have faced, we have seen wide receivers break 100 yards on them. Emeka Egbuka, Jordan Addison, and Cortland Sutton. He had 99 yards. And, of course, I left Puka Nacua out because he's Puka Nacua, right? So when does he not break 100 yards? So fire up Jamison Williams, man. I'm excited about this one. I'm buying into the biting of the kneecaps and Dan Campbell calling plays, man. Fire him up.
Yeah, this will be 3 straight good games for him, right? If he has a good game this week, so he'll, if you played NBA Jam, he'll be going from heating up to on fire. But I like the spot he's in, man, and I'm with you. I'm with you on the Dan Campbell Detroit Lions offensive resurgence. If there's few people in this world I believe in less, or that I couldn't believe in more than Dan Campbell. He's an easy guy to get behind. So yeah, if he's going to continue to call the shots and given the matchup that Detroit has in front of him this week, I like it for sure.
Yeah, this is man, just on a strictly football level. After the goofiness of that opening press conference from Dan Campbell several years ago, I don't think any of us would have seen this coming. But I mean, really, it seems like it couldn't have happened for a better dude. And I mean, they've got it rolling. I mean, they've rebuilt that thing. And like you said, that offense is going to look the way it did last week, and they're going to be doing the things that made them so successful in years past. They are really, really dangerous going forward. So, Drew, let's move into you. Let's move into one of these players that, to say the least, is a little bit hit or miss so far. I mean, he's had some weeks, he's had some not so good weeks, but with Woody Marks playing Kyle's Tennessee Titans, I mean, it is one of those situations where the Titans have not been great against the run, and Woody Marks continues to flash here and there all season.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Woody Marks has been the pass catching back over Nick Chubb, but it looks like the full backfield takeover might finally be happening. Last week, Woody Marks played 80% of the snaps and handled 14 carries, which was his most since week 4. And Nick Chubb saw a season low 13% of the snaps and only 5 carries. At Chubb's low usage, it could be somewhat due to the fact that the Texans were playing catch up the majority of that game against the Jags until they did end up somehow catching up. I still don't know how that happened, but all that aside, Woody Marks was still the running back on the field to start the first 7 drives of the game. So this wasn't just like all Woody snaps increased in the second half once they were needing to play catch up. He was the guy from the get go this week or last week. So clearly a change in how the offense was operating. And assuming the Texans are able to keep their game a little closer this week against the Titans, maybe Chubb does see his snap percentage get back into like the 30s or something like that. But I don't think Marks gave them any reason to go away from him being the lead back for the Texans. So I think that that's a trend that we can expect to see continue. I mentioned them playing the Titans. They've been the 8th best matchup for fantasy running backs over the past 5 weeks based on schedule adjusted fantasy points given up to the position. So Marks, he's in a great spot to put together back-to-back weeks, good weeks if he gets the majority of the carries again in this game. So you've got a a young, explosive player that's starting to see his highest snap share in the offense, and now he's got a great matchup in front of him after running really well last week. So I like the momentum that he's got behind him. I like the matchup. So I've got him up around running back 18, running back 19 compared to the running back 23 spot in the ECR. So still a running back 2 for me this week, just one that I'm, I guess, a little bit more confident in than ECR. So he's a smash play for me this week.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that when Jeffrey Simmons has been out for how long has it been, Kyle? Has it been 3 weeks now? Jeffrey Simmons has been
it feels like 6 weeks.
It feels like forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
50 years. But yeah, that happens. Guess what? It aligns perfectly with them allowing people to take advantage on the ground. So great call.
That's a good point.
Yeah, he did this to us earlier in the year in week 4. He killed us. He was running back 6 for the week.
Titans.
Yeah,
that's right.
He did. He was running back 6 for the week. That was basically his coming out party. He had 2 touchdowns in that game, 69 yards on the ground, 50 in the air. So he did it all, and there's no reason why he can't do it again. So, yep,
That's awesome.
Well, good. So that next smash player we're talking about was Woody Marks. And for me, guys, what better way to make a triumphant return to the Smash or Pass arena than to just take 2 players that might as well be complete dart throws and say, let's make them smash plays this week. How you feel about that, fellas? We ready to have some fun?
I like your style.
yeah.
All right, so let's start with Trey Tucker, who was the ECR wide receiver at 34. And look, guys, the Raiders have been bad in a lot of ways this year. But Jacoby Myers was traded a couple weeks back. And the way I see it is somebody, literally anybody, has to be that second pass catcher. And with the way that Pete Carroll has kind of inserted Trey Tucker into his offense throughout the year, you're looking at a guy that, as of right now, get this number for you real quick. This is a guy that has played 94.2% of snaps for the Las Vegas Raiders this year and participated in 97.6% of the routes here in 2025. I mean, this is a guy that isn't leaving the field for the Raiders. So he's a guy that clearly they like his athleticism. He's had 24.4% of the Raiders' air yard share throughout the season. He's been a first read on 21.9% of plays. And guys, he gets, let's just call it a good matchup. Let's just call it a great matchup in terms of playing the Dallas Cowboys pass defense. A defense that is giving up 30.8 points per game this season. And I know that Geno Smith has very much not been good. But Player Profiler gave us an interesting stat to look at in terms of why he should be looking Trey Tucker's way a little more than he is right now. Trey Tucker, only 52 targets on the season, but when Geno Smith targets Trey Tucker is 8th in the league in quarterback rating per target. Geno Smith is working with a 124.8 quarterback rating whenever he throws the ball to Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker is an elite separator. He's averaging 2.33 yards of separation per target. He's got a 56.2% target premium. He sits here. He's a guy that can win against man. He's had 117. He's had 109 routes run versus man, and he's been targeted 16.5% during that time. And guys, he's number 2 in separating versus man, and once again, that 2.28 yards per target in man coverage. Now, I know a lot of teams play zone, but even then, he's averaging 2.2 yards of separation against zone coverage as well. So if you want to ask me why I think Trey Tucker is a smash play this week, it's because he seems to have a good rapport with Geno Smith. They need a second pass catcher. He's the most explosive guy left in that receiver room. Don't start with Tyler Lockett. We know what he is at this point. This is a guy that I really feel good that if they get him the targets, and that is an if because he's had a wide receiver 1 finish earlier this season overall. He's also had some stinkers in there. So let's call it boom or bust. But if you're going to put money on a guy, let's put money on the guy that's on the field all the time, has a good rapport with his quarterback, and makes things happen whenever he's on the field.
Yeah, he might be boom or bust, but the Dallas Cowboys have been more boom than bust whenever it comes to what receivers do against them. They have been the number one matchup on the season for fantasy running backs based on schedule adjusted fantasy points given up to position. And even if you trim it down to the last 5 weeks to make it like to look at more recent trends, they're still the fourth best matchup over the last 5 weeks. So start your receivers against the Dallas Cowboys. It's somebody other than Brock Bowers has to catch the ball. And the thing that you said, Rhett, the same thing that I would have leaned on is that we don't know what the rotation looks like in terms of, is Tyler Lockett going to be out there? Is Jack Best going to get more involved? What are they going to? We don't know. But one thing we do know is Trey Tucker's on the field all the time. Him and Brock Bowers are out there on the field. And so if somebody other than Bowers is going to have a big day, my bet would be Trey Tucker as well. So I like the call.
I did consider talking about Tyler Lockett a little bit. I mean, I really did. I was surprised how high
he had, 7 targets last week.
Well, not just that, but his ranking in ECR. He's the 46th wide receiver in the ECR. And you think of Tyler Lockett.
Pretty good for Tyler Lockett.
It's fantastic. And I don't think that it's
the Cowboys.
Well, it's number one is the Cowboys. Number two, I think that there's a question to be had that you can say, all right, here's a wide receiver with familiarity with not only the coaching staff, but also the quarterback from history. And you have to wonder, a person, like Pete Carroll, like Geno, is a comfort level, something that can elevate even a less than stellar player. And it's not like Tyler Lockett's not going to make Geno Smith better. Geno Smith isn't going to make Tyler Lockett better. I don't think either one of those two really help the other. But conversely, I think that the familiarity can support a decent floor for Tyler Lockett. It's a scary gross floor that might not have a ceiling. I mean, it has a ceiling, just a really low one. So I guess I should say it. I don't want people to hear that and clip that. No ceiling in place for Tyler Lockett. Sky's the moon, But I saw that you put Trey Tucker in, and I couldn't have two Vegas wide receivers as bad as the Cowboys are. That is asinine.
Well, Nate, I wanted to ask you, as a defensive-minded guy, an IDP guy, because the Dallas Cowboys, they added to the defense, Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson. 2 questions. For one, on a football question, do you think that will help their defense in a tremendous way? Or second question, in fantasy, how will that help for IDP players? Your thoughts on that?
Quinnen Williams is not, of the defensive tackle position, you don't typically, or the defensive line position, the defensive tackle is not one, at least more of an interior. You want more of the edge rusher. But in some that actually do have defensive tackle heavy leagues, he's fantastic. He always has been really good. He adds to that. They had a decent interior, but Logan Wilson's been a solid linebacker, has been IDP circles for years. I think that he's can do a little bit of everything. Good in run protection, good in pass pro. What does it do for their defense as a whole? I'm still attacking Dallas as a target defensively.
The secondary still sucks.
The secondary still sucks. Does that not mean that will they get beat deep as much? Maybe not, because maybe there'll be more pressure. Teams might have to do short to intermediate routes a little bit more so, but I still don't worry about that. But it's a valid point to bring up, and we should watch that this week and see just what that impact, if the Raiders' offensive line is so bad and so porous that they don't have time. Is that an indicator of future success for the Dallas Cowboys defense, or is that because it's the Raiders? I don't know.
The Cowboys were the 5th best matchup for running backs over the last 5 weeks too. So I think that's the big one to watch with the Cowboys. I think that's the biggest trend to watch is it still an exploitable matchup for fantasy running backs, or is that one we have to be a little bit more concerned of in the future now that they've shored up that interior defensive line now? So I think receivers and tight ends will probably still be something you can go to, but running backs will probably have to see if that's still as good of a matchup as it has been up to this point.
Fantastic point.
Cool, guys. So that was our first set of Smash players. Drew, you want to go ahead and get to some listener questions?
Let's do it. Let's do it. So Eddie was coming in. He came in hot to start off the show. Was just yelling out players. Bowers tight end 1. Winston top 10. He was just screaming Tampa Bay. Bunch of exclamation points. Just yelling in the comments.
Popping off.
But then asked, "Will Bucky ever come back?" And Eddie, buddy, I don't know, because I figured since he didn't get put on IR that he would be back by now, because if he wasn't going to be back by now, why not put him on IR? So Eddie, I don't know, but I have a couple teams that are wondering the exact same thing. So hopefully soon. But as far as I know, the most that we know right now is he's not coming back this week, right? That's pretty much all we know right now.
Yeah.
I just feel Eddie getting manic in that thread of comments too. He was like, Jameis top 10 quarterback. Brock Bowers tight end 1. Tampa Bay. Is Bucky ever gonna come back to me? Like, it's just, I felt it, dude. I felt him just spiral as if he was Dutch Vanderlyn in Red Dead Redemption 2, just steady on the decline as things went on and got worse and worse for the gang. So
man was going through all the emotions. But Alex had a more thorough question, basically just kind of like a rate my team. So we've got rest of season. How do we feel? This is a 10-man PPR league. He's got Drake May and Tua at quarterback. His running backs are Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and Woody Marks, Bucky Irving, RJ Harvey. And wide receivers, JSN, I'm assuming JJ's Justin Jefferson, Wandale, and Alec Pierce. And then at tight end, he has McBride and Colston Loveland. So pretty solid team. He said made some good trades. One of the trades that he asked for some feedback on that we'll get to here in just a second was that he traded Nico and Saquon for JSN and ETN back in week 4. But as far as this team goes, how we feel rest of season, so any changes that he could make, with you, if there is a tight end needy team, it's a 10-team league, so it might be harder to find. But if there's a tight end needy team, Colston Love is starting to emerge a little bit. Since you have McBride, you're never going to play Loveland except for if McBride is on bye or injured. And so you don't necessarily have to roster 2 tight ends in a 10-team league. So I would see if you could package Loveland with maybe one of the running backs that you have. Like do Loveland and Woody, or Loveland and Harvey off the big game or something like that, and see if you can level up at the running back position, get you a more consistent running back in the mix. You've got some exciting young rookies. The running back room looks good, would look a lot better with a healthy Bucky Irving. But with your team not needing Loveland, if there is a tight end needy team that would bite on that, I would try to pair Loveland with somebody else and go level up at running back or receiver. But outside of that, I think it looks good. I mean, you've got Drake Mays, probably a top 5 quarterback rest of season. Trey McBride is a top 2 tight end rest of season. So you have the positional advantage at quarterback and tight end you want to typically have in a 10-team league. And the running back and receiver room looks good. So I don't think you necessarily have to make any moves, but that would probably be the route I'd go if I was going to. I don't know, Nate, Kyle, Rhett, if you guys have any other thoughts there.
No, I think that your approach to that was spot on. The challenge is, of course, in a 10-team league, the likelihood that someone is super needy at tight end is
right.
diminished versus a 12. But I want to touch on what he asked about, and we'll use the hindsight's 2020 tool that we have right now. Is that when he traded Nico and Saquon Barkley for JSN and ETN, at the time, if I didn't know how the results would have been, I would have said no, I'm not doing that, because I thought Nico was bound for a resurgence in Saquon. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's actually a bad trade as of the 6 weeks that have passed. It's probably been a net positive for him in reality.
Oh, yes.
My question would be then is, I guess, for the remainder of the season, do you still think that it's going to be one of those trades that he looks back and goes, still glad I made it, or damn, I could have used the added depth? I don't think he needs the depth. I think Nico was his number 4. He really was, because Igbuka as his 3. It would have been hard to do every week, I'm sure. It's tough hitting that button of start, Igbuka over Nico, but rightfully so, because he's not going to start him at all. So I think that in hindsight, that's a trade. That's a That's a great one because you really had to probably think long and hard. And I'm sure that question of do I do this trade was asked to 1,000 different friends, family members, shows, everybody. And everybody probably had the same dilemma of, oh my gosh, I don't know if I would. Great call, man. Great
The
call.
only thing I think you'll still be happy about the trade, but the only thing that's probably going to suck is I think Saquon is about to smash rest of season. Like he's got a top 10 easiest strength of schedule rest of the way, and I don't think we've really seen Saquon at his best yet this year, and I think it's still coming. But you're going to have JSN that is going to continue to just be an absolute monster for you. So I don't think you're going to necessarily regret the trade. It might just be tough to watch Saquon do what I think he's about to do if it does indeed happen. But yeah, no, Alex, some great foresight there. You built a great team and should be a contender in a 10-team league for sure. Brandon is asking the hard-hitting questions.
Next.
Is Davis Mills better than Patrick Mahomes? One beat the Jags and one couldn't. People are asking. Streets are talking. You know, it's a tough world out here. So we've got a bottom of the barrel tight end question for this week. Start Theo Johnson, Mason Taylor, or Njoku. So Theo Johnson, we know he has Jameis Winston throwing him the ball this week now, which is always exciting. Against the Green Bay Packers, you've got let's see, what were the other two? Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor at New England, and then David Njoku is versus Baltimore. So if I ever have a chance to prop up a Jameis Winston weapon, I'm gonna do it. But in all jokes aside, Theo Johnson's the one I have ranked highest this week.
Likewise, and throw in the fact, Darius Slayton's limited or missed practice today as well, so that adds an even more context to it. So I agree with you on Theo.
All right, let's jump back into these smash plays.
Yep. Nate, start us off the second smash play. Michael Wilson is playing the San Francisco 49ers. Just talk us through it, man.
Yeah, I saw the RIP Bucky, and it kind of is a great segue for, unfortunately, the not RIP. I won't go that far. Not RIP. RI appendix. The appendix gone. Marvin Harrison. What a crazy thing! Like, to be fair, it just was great timing. I happened to be on the computer when I was looking through and got the notification, and I thought, early bird gets the worm. I'm going to look at the wide receiver 55 in ECR, and I imagine he's going to skyrocket probably going up to like around 36, 37. But I think it makes sense. It really does. We saw last week that Michael Wilson was getting more involved. Even I think it's really been an addition by subtraction. You take Kyler out of the equation, and Jacoby Brissett has really looked good. Jorge talked about him on Sunday morning. Actually, not even talked about him. He gushed over him to the point where I was getting a little uncomfortable. It was
bad, huh?
It was a little. It was a love song, some serenading going on, and
a little erotic, perhaps.
I wouldn't say erotic per se. It was probably erotic.
It was uncomfortable.
But it was correct. And you know what makes eroticism and fantasy football combine? Accuracy. And that's the tattoo that we should all get. Erotic and fantasy accuracy, and erotic analysis equals fantasy hot takes. And it has been. And honestly, without getting into the weeds of why, how, and what, the outside of Trey McBride, there's really no other. Greg Dortch, if you want to tell me you're going to start Greg Dortch, go.
Somebody
will say it, and I will not listen to that said person just because I can't get behind that. But I like it as a sneaky little, hey, who you going to go with? It's not easy to replace Marvin Harrison Jr. But Zay Jones is out for the season. You tell me another person in that offense that should see an uptick, and he did it. Michael Wilson, like I said, in the last two games, granted, doesn't matter who they played. They might have played Dallas, they might have played Seattle, but 11 targets in those two games. So as wide receiver 55, doesn't take 4 or 5 targets, 6 or 7 targets to become a wide receiver 3. And I think that's what we'll see this week out of him. I really do.
Yeah, I can't hate on that, man. Trey McBride's going to take so much attention. It's going to leave Michael Wilson open somewhere down the middle at some point. Yeah, like you said, wide receiver 55, one catch for 40, 50 yards. He beats that. So
Yeah.
he's going to get that. Yeah. Good call, Nate.
Yeah, the one question that I have, and I don't think it really affect him this week because they need production. But before Zay Jones landed on IR, before Marvin Harrison Jr. had to have emergency surgery, Michael Wilson has started to play like the last couple of weeks. Whenever he was more productive, he had been playing more snap slots. They had Zay Jones, Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside. Michael Wilson had been kind of like the big slot for Arizona, which had been working out well. And so now with Zay Jones on IR, Marvin Harrison Jr. not playing, I imagine it's going to be more outside snaps again for Michael Wilson. So it'd be interesting to see. I think that would concern me more if it was Kyler at quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. I think Jacoby's, more than capable of hitting those outside receivers more so. But it'll just be interesting to see if that change in where he's lining up has any effect on him at all. But given the matchup this week and just their pure need for pass catchers and there really not being anybody you can trust beyond McBride and Michael Wilson, regardless of where he lines up, I think he's a good play.
Yeah, that is actually one of the concerns I had as far as how high I would rank Michael Wilson overall.
Yeah.
Like, what can he be productive enough against outside coverage to really blow those numbers away? But in the deepest, nastiest leagues, the Kings Classic League, 14 teams, 3 flex spots, Michael Wilson is a smash play for me this week.
Yeah, I agree.
Necessity and gross. Sorry, Eddie, I see Marvin's on your team too. You, a man, I don't know who you're playing this week, but you need to go check their house and see that voodoo doll they got of you, and they're just pinning it up. You piss somebody off.
And these are the famous last words we all spit before Greg Dortch has a 7 target, 7 catch, 45-yard game.
Oh, I know.
Sounds about right.
I'm waiting.
But Kyle, your second smash play, we got some news to kind of boost up this take a little bit this week. But, J.K. Dobbins, very questionable. R.J. Harvey, kind of been emerging these past few weeks. It feels like the spot where it could be wheels up rest of the season for RJ Harvey.
Yeah, I'm going to take the plunge on my boy RJ Harvey out of Central Florida at ECR, running back 27, getting an opportunity here, Rhett, like you said, with Dobbins banged up. And, it is a tough matchup against Kansas City, no doubt, Nate. I loved what I've seen from him, though, just in a part-time role, and I remember I did question him in the draft process and coming up to fantasy draft seasons. I questioned it a little bit. I wasn't a firm no on not drafting him, but I just wasn't head over heels like some people. But now he's getting a shot, and he should hold down at least the same workload as what J.K. Dobbins has been able to hold. I'm in as an RB2 or a flex play this week. And look, I could make an argument, too, for Tyler Bidet. I almost got cute here and took Tyler Bidet in this spot. But to be clear, I don't want to underestimate that. Tyler Bidet, he'll be used in the passing game, may even vulture a touchdown in this contest. But Harvey, like you said, Rhett, has shown a lot of juice as of late. The hat trick against Dallas in Week 8 with 2 touchdowns on the ground, 1 in the air. Followed that up in Week 9 where he actually led the team in receiving against Houston with a touchdown there as well. And not much to show for in that Vegas game and that Thursday night thriller. But when you look at the Broncos offense and their expected fantasy points per game, more specifically the running backs, Dobbins is averaging 11 expected fantasy points per game, and RJ Harvey is averaging 8 on much less volume in that run game. And I found a couple of examples for you on prior running backs that Nate knows against the Chiefs that gives me further confidence in RJ Harvey beating this ranking for the week. Jahmyr Gibbs, 17 carries, 65 yards, no touchdowns, and he finished RB27. Travis Etienne, 12 carries for 49 yards. He finished RB30. So a performance like that, totally doable for RJ Harvey. And we're in the conversation of hitting that RB27 mark in week 11. So I'm in on RJ Harvey this week. Maybe it's the launching pad he needs, and see if we can get going.
Well, you're not going to catch Drew with 2 terrible takes like that, but I'm just kidding. No, it's actually I'm 100% joking. I would never shit on anybody's picks like that, but I do. I think that they've had some weaknesses as far as they don't allow super explosive plays every now, but it's capable for sure. So I was worried about RJ Harvey coming into this week. Don't get me wrong. More so than the passing game, especially.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think the take of Tyler Bidet or whoever is going to be extremely involved. I think that's going to be a popular take just because of what we know of what Sean Payton has done historically. But whenever you just look at the makeup of the running back room, like I truly think that the running back room has been as split as it has just because Dobbins has been pretty solid. And I don't think that Tyler Bidet or Jaleel McLaughlin or anybody like that is going to play well enough to warrant Denver wanting to constantly have them on the field. Like, not to say that RJ Harvey's going to play 100% of the snaps, because I don't think that's what's going to be the case. But I do think that the narrative of, it's still going to be a split backfield just because of Sean Payton, I do think that might end up being a little bit overblown going into the weekend. So I think Harvey's a good play, and I maybe it's just because Dobbins hasn't officially been ruled out yet, but I was surprised to see how low he is in ECR, even with the matchup, given the workload that I think he'll get. So I agree. I think it's a great call.
All right, good deal. Drew, keep it rolling, man, because you've got one of the more explosive rookies. He's kind of, once again, the guy's been a little bit up and down, but feels like we're getting a good matchup this week. Hot name right now, as low as he is in Luther Burden in Minnesota.
Yeah, this is very overdue, but if you believe the coach speak coming out of Bears head coach Ben Johnson's press conferences, it might finally be Luther Burden time. The Bears head coach was quoted saying that Burden is a guy that has been very productive when they've been able to get the ball in his hands, and there's a strong argument they should get it to him more. And Ben, I could not agree more. Among receivers that have at least 75 routes this season, Burden is 6th in yards per route run, 10th in yards per target, and he's 18th in yards after the catch per reception. Now, granted, that is a small sample considering he's only been targeted 18 times on the season, but all it's taken is 18 targets to show that Zaccheaus has no business being the full-time slot receiver over the guy that they just drafted 39th overall in the NFL draft. And I saw a ridiculous tweet from the Fantasy Points Data Twitter account that Luther Burden has 90% of Zaccheaus' receiving yards on 40% as many routes and 38% as many targets. So I just mind-blowing to me. And now you've got 2 drops last week for Zaccheaus, the head coach spending his time talking up the rookie receiver. You've got to think that Luther Burden is finally going to get that expanded role that it's so obvious that he deserves. And if he does step into that full-time slot receiver role, he's going to be lining up against a Viking defense that's been the 3rd best matchup for fantasy receivers over the last 5 weeks. And then Viking slot corner Josh Metellus gives up a league-high 0.48 fantasy points per route run, which is who Burden will likely spend the majority of his time lining up against. So if you're in a more shallow league where Burden is just a bench stash for you and you want to wait and see if the full-time role is coming before you put him in your lineup, I get that. But if you're in a deeper league or if you're beat up with injuries and bye weeks and you need to take a flyer on someone, I think Zaccheaus' struggles, Burden's efficiency in short work, and now the coach speak is loud enough to where you can take a shot on Burden, you can take the flyer, you can put him in your lineup in a beatable matchup where if he does get the increased snaps, and especially if DJ Moore ends up not playing this week. I know that's still kind of in the air right now. He would be more of a flex guy, like a deep flex guy for me if DJ Moore is active. But if DJ Moore misses this week, Burden might climb into like my top 35 receivers, something along that range. Right now is wide receiver 66 in the ECR. I've got him up around wide receiver 50. So I'm already a good handful of spots higher than ECR. But if DJ Moore also ends up getting ruled out, I'm going to have to find a way to get myself in check. But DJ Moore or no DJ Moore, I think that Luther Burden, based on his wide receiver 66 ranking in the ECR, is a smash play for me this week.
Yeah. I like it. Good.
I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about him for the rest of the season? If he takes off in this one and DJ Moore, is a little bit banged up, how do you like him for the rest of the season? You think he can stay as a flex?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Which it's easy for me to say because I've been a big Luther Burden guy through the entire draft process, and then even though he didn't get first round draft capital, he got solid draft capital, and now it's been limited work, but he's been extremely efficient in the touches he's gotten, and so if he does get an expanded role, especially I don't want to say like, oh, he's a Amon-Ra St. Brown just because he plays slot in the Ben Johnson offense. Like he's not a Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's not a Amon-Ra St. Brown. But the slot receiver in a Ben Johnson offense has been a very productive role whenever there is a capable player playing that role. And up to this point in the season, that has not been the case for the Bears because Zaccheaus is not an average or above average NFL receiver, in my opinion. Whereas Luther Burden, I think, has the talent level to make much more out of that opportunity. So I do think he could be a flex moving forward if he gets put into that role. And I think that there's a very really, like, in my opinion, I'm not an NFL talent evaluator for a full-time job. Nobody pays me to do this, but in my opinion, I think Luther Burden is the second best receiver on this team.
Fair. Yeah.
Fair enough. And so, Drew, if I'm going to co-sign your Luther Burden take, then I definitely have to stand behind what I'm about to say. And I'm very aware that what I'm about to say could very well blow up in my face. But before we do that, guys, let's take a stroll through the New York Jets wide receiver depth chart without Garrett Wilson before we talk about Adonai Mitchell this week, okay? And we're going to play a little game called Who as we go through this. All right, so sing along if you know the words.
Who?
Tyler Johnson. Who?
Who?
Arian Smith. Who?
Who?
John Mechie. Who?
Who?
Isaiah Williams. Who?
Who?
Oh,
Like,
I'm having too much fun with it.
like, do you understand that with Garrett Wilson gone and Mason Taylor having flashed some, but not enough, do we really just expect Breece Hall to get 20 targets this week? I mean, I guess it's possible.
Maybe.
But I think the point that I'm trying to make is, damn, some receiver has to come up and catch the ball. And why not be the guy that they acquired in a trade whenever they traded off Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts? I mean, clearly they see something in Adonai Mitchell as a talent. And why not? When you look at his profile, he's got 90%, he's 90% talent speed score. He's got draft capital. He's got the size. He's got a lot of things that look really good on paper. And what works for him also is the fact that heading into this week, they're playing the New England Patriots, and they're a 13-point underdog, which tells me that they're going to need to throw the ball just to kind of look somewhat competitive in this situation. And also playing a New England Patriots secondary that is 21st against fantasy wide receivers. So they're the 12th easiest match for fantasy wide receivers throughout this season. So I don't have a whole bunch of data to say that Adonai Mitchell gets this much of separation, this, that, and everything else, because if we're being honest, he hasn't played much for Indianapolis this year because other guys have emerged in front of him. But the formula is pretty simple as to why he can outperform, which, by the way, at ECR wide receiver 86, we're just taking the free space on bingo this week. Yeah. If he doesn't do this, he's cooked, by the way, just so we know something after this week. Either he's never going to be or there's a possibility. But the formula is simple. Injury plus matchup plus low ranking plus game script equals profit, maybe? I don't know. Let's have fun with it.
I mean, he's a penny on the ground that you can pick up that you can turn into a pawn shop and get a nickel for. So yeah, there's definitely profit for that potential because exactly like you said, opportunity should spark that. I hate to say I'm intrigued by their wide receiver room they put together because I'm not intrigued, but I am. There's a margin of it just based off of who we've known these wide receivers to be as far as or what our expectations could have been. Tyler Johnson at one point in Tampa had me intrigued. John Mechie in Houston at one point had me intrigued. Adonai Mitchell in Indy at one point had me intrigued. If you take all three of these and you put them on, I don't know, probably any team but the Jets, I would say it would be interesting with the depth they have. Like, for instance, if Jameis was the quarterback in New York this week, I would say,
which he is.
Yes, touche. Wrong team. And I would take that wide receiver room in New York, in the Jets wise, almost as much as I would as the Giants right now. Wan'Dale's clearly the one, but everybody else depth wise with the Giants, I just wish they had someone besides Justin Fields, because I would absolutely think that we could all three have a smash play and like Adonai Mitchell. Oh yeah, Tyler Johnson, Arian Smith. Yeah.
Yep.
All of them. Any one of them could, when you're chucking the ball 45, 50 times, but I think I love the play. I can't wait to talk about this next week or on Sunday.
For better or worse. I can't wait to talk about it next week.
Just to see A.D. Mitchell's name somewhere on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. We will all be happy together.
Yeah, I think that A.D. Mitchell might be the only like other NFL caliber starting receiver on the Jets outside of Garrett Wilson at this point. But it's just like two questions. Number one, I don't know what his snaps are going to look like. Even as bad as they need him, I just don't know how acclimated he is to the offense. Right. And number two, I don't know if he's going to be able to get out of his own way, because even for the Colts, like he flashed so many different times. The talent is clearly there, but it's just like the Rams game in particular, and that one sticks out to me, of course, because I watched that full game. But like the Colts should have beaten the Rams, and it was two bonehead plays from A.D. Mitchell that kept him from doing it. Whenever he dropped the ball before he got to the end zone, and then there was a terrible holding penalty on what should have been a Jonathan Taylor touchdown run. Like two different plays, he cost the Colts the game, and so it's like, I say that out of frustration because A.D. Mitchell has put so much good tape out there between college and the few snaps he's put together in the NFL. Like it is very clear that he's got the talent in bunches. He just has to put the rest together. And I hope the Jets gives him the fresh start to be able to do so, because I truly do think that Garrett Wilson and A.D. Mitchell could be a very solid 1-2 punch in the NFL if he can figure out this part up here and get that part taken care of. I think he could be a really good receiver. So I hope he gets it figured out.
And maybe this is like a Quentin Johnston situation, who he just popped off,
It's a good comparison. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, maybe this is it. Maybe Rhett's putting it out there that this is A.D. Mitchell time.
Let's not. Let's one has Justin Herbert, one has Justin Fields.
That might be a problem.
Yeah.
That might be a problem.
The old Debbie Downer Nate.
We're supportive of Rhett. We think you're doing great, buddy.
You're doing great, buddy.
That would make me feel worse. All right.
You made me feel like the Make-A-Wish kid on this show.
Rav B 1980 has a wish, and that's for us to answer his question. So let's do that. He needs 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex in full PPR, and gives us all the options. So 2 running backs, he's got CMC, Rashad White, Tyrone Tracy, David Montgomery, Kamani Vidal, J.K. Dobbins, who I don't think plays. So I'm just going to take him out of consideration for this, unless you guys have a different take on that scenario. And then Aaron Jones. So CMC is very obviously one of the 2 running backs here, right? But then who is RB2 between Rashad White, Tyrone Tracy, David Montgomery, Kamani Vidal, and Aaron Jones? For me, I've got Vidal at 19, Aaron Jones at 20, Rashad White at 22, and David Montgomery at 24.
Wow.
So you've got like half of my RB2s here. And then who did I forget there? Tracy, I think, is a little bit lower than that. So I technically have Vidal as my RB2 out of this group, but it's a very, very close grouping. So do you guys have outside of CMC, do you guys have a running back that you feel strongly about this week? Because I got a whole group of them, basically.
No, they're all close in my opinion. All of them, all the running backs are close.
I think we can say with how close the running backs are that whatever running back we don't pick as the running back 2 is probably going to be the flex. Like given the fact that Dubs, J-Mo, and Jacoby Myers and Troy Franklin are our options at receiver, and I could be wrong. But I don't know, Nate. Who would you have Vidal as RB2 there, or do you have somebody different?
No, I had Aaron Jones ahead of him. Aaron Jones got a limited practice today, so I moved Aaron Jones down just a little bit because I think maybe Jordan Mason might have more involvement as a direct result. I want to put Rashad White up just because Buffalo is such a positive defense to go against, but I don't trust the usage as being guaranteed. And so I think I go Vidal. Then I still think it's Vidal then White and Monty. Aaron Jones kind of probably a little maybe lean Jones over Monty, but it's anybody not on Vidal right now?
No, I think that's the right call.
Collective? Hey, all right, everybody.
Okay, so then the 2 receivers, you've got pick 2 of these 4, Romeo Doubs, J-Mo, Jacoby Myers, and Troy Franklin. J-Mo's the easy one for me. He's in. We've already had a very smart individual here tell you why that should be the case. I've got J-Mo and Doubs as my two highest receivers, with Franklin a little bit behind that.
Yep.
Same here.
Okay, so we've got Doubs and J-Mo as the 2 receivers. We've got CMC and Vidal as the 2 running backs. So then I think the question becomes for the 1 flex: is it Troy Franklin, or is it the next best running back between like Rashad White, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones?
Full point PPR, I probably lean. I think Franklin's getting the target volume has been enough support. Do I think it's going to be quality? The matchup is so bad. I know. I hate it. I hate that matchup. And I want to say it's Rashad White, and yet I look at the Bills as far as how they've been beaten up by running backs has been strictly on the ground and at the red zone. I mean, they've allowed 12 touchdowns to running backs. Not a ton of points have come from the receiving work, and I feel like that would be Rashad White's golden goose to get production for us to put in your flex.
I still might go with Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is my flex pick. I think Aaron Jones against Chicago is the direction I would go if it was me. I typically prefer to have a receiver in the flex, and if Franklin had almost any other matchup, I think it would be Franklin for me. But I think if it was me building this team, I would go with Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I was debating for the flex between Monty and Aaron Jones. And because it's PPR, maybe I lean Aaron Jones in that situation. Because he's getting the catches now in that backfield. He's averaging like 4 catches in the last 3 games, so that's 4 points. I think, you're kind of relying on Monty to score a touchdown, and if it doesn't happen, I think Aaron Jones beats him. So
I mean, we at least gave you 2 clear options at running back and receiver. We gave you Dubs at J-Mo, and we gave you CMC and Vidal. So the flex spot might still be a battle, but hopefully
that's tough. It is tough.
I can co-sign on Aaron Jones. I would just say watch the practice report tomorrow again.
Yeah,
and make sure, because it's 2 different injuries, and I think they're minor. And he had a good week, so I'll co-sign on that so we can have you lock it in.
There we go. We got a consensus. All right, Jelly of the month got a quarterback question for us, and I think it's a good one this week. So you got Darnold versus the Rams, or should he stream the position? And I do think Darnold is in that category where if the matchup isn't great, he is somebody you can stream instead of, or you can stream instead of playing Darnold. So I think this is a fair question. His options: Jacoby Brissett, no Marvin Harrison Jr. Got to keep that in mind. Tua, Mac Jones, and Davis Mills are on the wire. It's 4-point passing touchdown. And Winston is also available. So we'll add him in there. So 4-point passing touchdown. Does he play Darnold versus the Rams, or does he play Brissett, Tua, Mac Jones, or Davis Mills? For me, I have Darnold and Brissett almost back to back. I think they might actually be back to back if I remember right. I think Darnold is obviously the better quarterback. He's playing much as good as Brissett has played overall, even though last week was kind of shaky. Darnold is playing incredible. So obviously Darnold is the better quarterback, but the Rams, they have been difficult toward middle of the pack recently against fantasy quarterbacks. Mac Jones did have some success last week. Whereas Brissett has the 49ers, who have been a very positive matchup for fantasy quarterbacks here of late. And so that would be the decision I would be making if it was me. I've got Tua, Mac Jones, Davis Mills. I've got those guys more like in the 20s. So that the only guys I have in the teens of this group would be Darnold or Brissett. So that would be the decision for me between those two. If you want to trust the talent, I think you go Darnold. If you want to go matchup, I think you go Jacoby.
The one area too is the point he emphasizes it's 4-point passing touchdown. Anytime there's 4-point passing touchdown, any rushing floor, I inflate any potential rushing quarterback usually a couple spots higher than normal, just because you get that variance a little bit more. So not that Jacoby Brissett has been running wild. I mean, we saw last week, I think, was his highest actual.
He probably
rushing.
runs more than any of the other guys that
100%. He will run more than all of them combined.
Right. Yeah.
So if I have him back to back, well, if I'm you and you have him back to back, I'm going to give and hope that possibly the 30 yards on the ground that he's had. I mean, he's had 19, 26, 31. The only other thing I would pay attention to, I guess, and I'm digging really deep into trying to know your league format, is if there is a penalty for sacks, I might be a little more concerned with Brissett, just because he's been sacked 5-6 times each over the last 3 weeks. So again, way too many figures and factors to go into this. So I apologize, guys.
No. I think it's something. I think it's important to keep in mind. But yeah, I've got him back to back. So I think if you want to play the matchup, you go Jacoby. If you want to just trust the guy that's playing the best ball, you go with Darnold. But I don't think you can really go wrong between those two guys. But those would be the two that I would be choosing between. But all right, Rhett, I think that's all the questions that we have. So let's round this thing out with some pass plays.
Yeah, let's get to a pass play. Nate, take us home. Take one of you two guys, whichever one you're going to have more fun with. Give us your second smash bet. I want you guys to do the same, because I want to end on a hot take for myself tonight.
Yeah, well, earlier we said that we saw Woody Marks clearly taking over the backfield in Houston, or at least potentially clearly, obviously taking over maybe the backfield type scenario. And in Seattle, I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever that it's not anything short of basically a split backfield. Kenneth Walker, averaging a little over 9 fantasy points per game. Charbonnet is doing about the same. Kenneth Walker's one touchdown since week 4. Walker hasn't scored double-digit fantasy points since week 4. Charbonnet's not even doing great on the ground, but yet Kenneth Walker still can't grasp majority of that workload. And shout out Sunday mornings to Dave Abraham, who's on with us, and is telling you guys he nicknamed Kenneth Walker Kenneth White Walker, because hearkening to the White Walkers in where he gets near the red zone and he turns into a ghost. And I thought that was unfortunately hilarious and yet somewhat truthful, where I need some more work in that red zone, or at least a touchdown out of Kenneth Walker to feel comfortable, especially against the Rams defense that they've allowed the 5th fewest rushing yards, 2 total touchdowns, fewest fantasy points to running backs. Yeah, just a bad matchup altogether.
I was trying to think of something clever there, because remember when Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts, back in his
Oh yeah.
That's kind of funny.
There's definitely a connection there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
They'll share stories.
All right, keep things rolling for us, Kyle.
Yeah, so what's my first pass is
you can pick one, whichever one you would rather deliver, and then I guess you can just tell us who your other one was without having to expand
without any context. Yeah, sure. Then I think I'm gonna pick. You guys will find out soon why I picked this one. Jake Ferguson, ECR, tight end 5. It's more of a flex for me, because I wrote on a featured article over at Fantasy Pros back in week 6 that Fergie was a sell high candidate for basically when CeeDee Lamb comes back, his usage would come down, and I got some hate mail over that take. Some dude said, you clearly don't watch Cowboy games, blah, 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 blah. Well, Lamb came back in week 7, and Ferguson, he saved the day with that touchdown. Lucky him. He had 7 catches for 29 yards. But since then, week 8, no catches, 1 target. Week 9, finished tight end 26. Ferguson's target share reduced from 22.3% down to 14.4%, on Lamb's return. His first read share really plummeted after Lamb came back. It was 26.4% while he was gone, and now it's 17.8%. This week, he gets the Raiders, who actually defend the tight end quite well. They allow the fourth fewest fantasy points to the tight end position, with Pickens and Lamb making up nearly half of the target share. I just don't see Ferguson seeing enough volume to crack the top 5. Yeah, he might find the end zone there on the goal line like he did there in that 1 week. But you know what? It was probably more of a flex to that guy who was entered my DMs on I don't watch Cowboy games, and look what happened.
The Cowboys fan might not think you don't watch good Cowboys games, but he clearly does not understand the importance of a tight end needing to be a top 2 option on their team to have the chance to be fantasy relevant. And it was clear as day that once CD and Pickens were both healthy, those were going to be the top 2 guys, and Jake Ferguson would be, somewhat dependent on if he got the targets that week or not. So while it should have been clear as day that was the right call, that is just proof right there that no matter what call you make, there will always be somebody that thinks you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you just got to keep it pushing and keep it moving, regardless. And so, there might be a Denver Broncos fan or 2 out there that might not be happy with the fact that I think that Cortland Sutton is somebody that you should be avoiding this week as well. And I don't think that should be a hot take given the fact they're playing Kansas City. But look, I knew things were trending this way recently, but we're officially at the point where Troy Franklin has overtaken Cortland Sutton and now leads the Broncos pass catchers in target share. And he's tied for the highest first read percentage. Like, this isn't just Troy Franklin is the 2. It's like a 1A, 1B type of thing now. And I don't know if I don't know if it's a Bo Nix thing. I don't know if it's a connection thing with Sutton. I don't know what's going on, but Sutton has had 4 or less receptions in 4 out of the last 5 weeks. And he, after being a top 15 receiver for 3 of the first 4 weeks of the season, he has been wide receiver 30 or worse 4 of the last 5 weeks. And look, Sutton isn't. I know last week, whenever I said to fade Keenan Allen, that I compared him to Jamal Williams because of how touchdown dependent Keenan Allen had been. Sutton, he's not quite Jamal Williams, but he might be like David Montgomery, something like that. Like, he has been pretty touchdown dependent, which that's been a big part of Sutton's game for the last several years. But the difference is he was delivering in that aspect where he hasn't been recently. And so this week, the Chiefs defense, man, they have been the toughest matchup for fantasy receivers over the last 5 weeks based on schedule adjusted fantasy points given up to the receiver position. And it doesn't matter where he lines up. It doesn't matter if it's on the left, on the right, in the slot. All 3 of the Chiefs' main corners give up 0.20 fantasy points per route run or less. It does not matter if he's on the outside, in the slot. The Chiefs secondary has just been so insanely good. And it's just an incredible, difficult matchup for receivers. I don't think that Bo Nix has been playing particularly well, and Sutton just hasn't been seeing the volume that would need to be going his way for me to feel good about his chances to overcome a matchup as difficult as this one. And so given the low floor that's been shown recently on the weeks that he doesn't score a touchdown, given how involved Franklin is, given the difficult matchup, if he doesn't find the end zone this week, I think the floor is scarily low. And so at wide receiver 29, that's a little bit too high for me. I'm gonna, and it's weird to say that because Sutton was a guy that was drafted much higher than the top 30 receivers, and early on in the season he was much better than a top 30 receiver. And so now he's a borderline top 30 receiver, and I'm saying that's too high, and that's a strange feeling, but that's where we're at. And then the other one, just to kind of throw it out there, I think there might be better options for you at quarterback than Baker Mayfield this week against Buffalo. I think you might be able to, stream maybe a Jacoby Brissett or a Matthew Stafford or something along those lines. But Patrick could, he co-signed just saying period.
I like that.
So, but Rhett, why don't you let us know? We've gone through our passes, so let us know. I know you said you wanted to end the show on a hot take, so the floor is yours for you to scorch it.
All right, so guys, heading into the season, there was a lot of talk about Saquon Barkley coming off of a 500 touch season and what that would do to his production and all those different things. And over the last 2 weeks, one against the New York Giants, where he put up 174 total yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had 101 total yards last week against the Green Bay Packers. Those were by far his 2 best games of the season to this point. But if you look at it in a large scale, and the fact that he's playing the Detroit Lions this week, more on that later. Guys, whatever corollary that was going on where people said Saquon Barkley might not be as productive this year, to this point, we're 9 games into the season, he's averaging 3.9 yards per carry. He has 579 rushing yards, and he has 6 total touchdowns, which are perfectly solid numbers. But when you're coming off of a 2,000-yard season where you had 15 touchdowns, you were the number 1 running back overall in fantasy, it makes you wonder if there was something to that. And so you have a guy who seems to be less productive this year, playing a Detroit Lions run defense that has been absolutely filthy. Mm-hmm. They've given up the 6th least rushing yards in the league this year. They've given up they have the 5th lowest success rate against their defense. They've got the 5th lowest yards after contact percentage. This is all thanks to the Fantasy Points data suite. And yes, Saquon Barkley does offer some pass catching upside. And the Detroit Lions in middle of the road, they allowed checkdowns on 8.4% of pass attempts. So this says, okay, maybe Saquon Barkley has some pass game upside this week. But then you remember that Jalen Hurts, if things go awry, tends to scramble a little bit more than most quarterbacks do. But here's the one that really stood out in my mind. Success rate is a big barometer for me as to how effective a running back is. And so I went into the Fantasy Points data suite and I boiled it down and I went to it on a very granular level. And I looked at running backs who average greater than 15 carries per game and have played in 6 or more games this season. So guys who have been pretty healthy and have been workhorse guys. Saquon Barkley, among those running backs, or with greater than 15 carries, Saquon Barkley is 57th in success rate in that criteria. So Saquon Barkley is not the same guy he was last year. He's playing a very good Detroit Lions run defense. I know this is a high over-under game, and I know people are expecting points. But and it's Saquon Barkley. He's coming in as the ECR running back 8. He could, of course, blow this out of the water. But there's a very realistic path statistically with the matchup that says that Saquon Barkley just won't be the ECR running back 8 this week. Based off the matchup, based off of his success this season, based off of the track record of this season, he has to be a pass in that regard. Because looking one more time at Player Profiler, if he is running back 8 this week, he has had 2 games where he's been running back 8 or better this season. So it is what it is. Love the player, love the game, love the guy. But I just don't see a path this week. Drew, you muted.
Are you muted? Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, no.
Did you mute it again?
Yeah.
I muted him.
Oh. As I went to unmute myself, the host muted me again. He said,
"You don't want to hear you. You don't want to hear your rebuttal.
You do not need to participate in this conversation." All I was going to say was that I agree in the sense of I have Saquon down at running back 12 compared to the running back 8 ranking that you referenced, and so I do have him lower than ECR. but I don't think there's really anybody that's going to sit Saquon this week necessarily. It's just more of like a, hey, you should temper expectations, maybe make adjustments elsewhere in your lineup.
Agreed. You don't
shoot for upside in your flex spot instead of playing it safe, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to get that out there, that I don't think that you were telling anybody to set Saquon, but I feel like that needed to at least be said, just so it was out there. But I will say that I alluded to this earlier, and so I'll just say, if your league has a trade deadline for after this week, I think we should be buying Saquon Barkley, because the talent is still there. I know the offensive line hasn't been as good. The offense as a whole hasn't been as good. Saquon hasn't been as good. Of course he hasn't been. Like, he was incredible last year. I still think the talent's there. I still think that the rushing offense is great. And once he gets beyond this week, from weeks 12 to week 17, he has the third easiest schedule. And he plays Dallas, Chicago, the Chargers, Vegas, Washington, and Buffalo between the next week and championship week. The only even semi-difficult matchup in that stretch for fantasy running backs is the Chargers in week 14. So I think that Saquon is – I do agree. I think he has a down week compared to what Saquon managers are hoping for this week. From there on out, I think he's going to be an absolute smash. And so if you have an opportunity to buy low on him, I think let him struggle a little bit this week and then go try to grab him.
Yeah. Well, fellas, as always, great job. Anything you guys want to plug, talk about before we get out of here, or what?
No, just make sure to come back next week. Keep riding with us. We're gonna keep on keeping track of how we're doing with these Smasher Pass picks. We're gonna keep you guys updated. We're not trying to hide anything here, so you guys are gonna know, how we're doing with this stuff, and just keep tapping in every week. We do this thing year round, so just keep keeping tabs with us.
Yeah. And there was a trade question that we wanted to get out here before we get out of here. Kathy Z2V asked trade Drake May, Javonte, Trey Benson, and Davis. Is that Ray Davis?
Yeah.
For Tet, Kyron, Blake Corum, Travion Henderson, and Jalen Waddle.
All right. So you're getting Kyron, Corum. So you're getting the
Rams backfield.
The Rams backfield, Travion Henderson and Jalen Waddle. You're giving up Javonte, Trey Benson. Ray Davis is a nothing as far as this deal goes. So Javonte and Benson and Tet. So you're getting the better receiver, clearly, going from Tet to Waddle. As much as I like Tet, going from Tet to Waddle has been incredible. Kyron and Javonte, I think, are almost a wash. I'd rather have Henderson than Benson rest of season. So I guess
the key is what it's Drake May.
If it's a one quarterback league, how bad do you need Drake May?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a one quarterback league. I don't think it. I assume that's true.
If it was super flex, then this wouldn't be close with May. Yeah,
I would assume that's probably the throw in, because I think I lean on every other position a little bit. Like, I actually like Kyron a little bit.
And they
they have Allen.
There you go. Okay,
so May's like the sweetener to get this done. The team that's doing this trade probably doesn't have a great quarterback, so they're getting May. Okay.
I say do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you don't need Drake May, I think I would do it. I think Kyron and Javonte's kind of a wash. Henderson has. I talked about how great of a schedule that Saquon has rest of season. The Patriots backfield has the best strength of schedule rest of season. So if you believe in the Travion Henderson breakout, he has the runway to absolutely crush rest of season. And even at worst, I think he still outproduces Trey Benson. And then I would rather have Waddle than Tet rest of season. So you get the better end on running back and the better end on receiver. You have to give up Drake May, but you don't need Drake May. So yep, I agree. I think that's a trade that I would do.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. And we want to thank everybody for locking in with us tonight, as we always do.
Appreciate you,
keep in mind, appreciate you, Eddie. We love you, brother. Pre-game show on Sunday. Nate's going to be there. Kyle might make a cameo. Plays and fades dropping tomorrow at fantasyandfriends.com, where I give you my picks on who you should start and sit on the week. Besides that, yeah, we're going to be here next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Week 12 Smash and Passes. Drew can be found on Twitter at Drew3MR. Kyle can be found at KZ1180. Nate at Nate Markham. Myself at R Manual Sports. We are part of the Fantasy and Frames family. We are Fourth and Frames. Toodles.